Hi everyone, let's talk books, and today I want to talk about transitioning out of YA. Not necessarily stopping reading YA, but this idea came about because my sister, my dogs are barking. Lincoln, lady, wanna come here? Come on, lady, up. Come in here. Oh, good boy, good girl. Okay, so this video came about because my sister is in a college town for the summer. She's taking a summer class and working, and she's a little bit bored because no one else is in town, it seems like. And so I was like, hello, why don't you just read? And she was like, Cynthia, I'm done reading YA. I cannot read any more YA. And that's when I was like, there are more than just YA books out there. But I had gotten her to love reading by introducing her to YA. I think it was Anna and the French Kiss, one of the first kind of books I picked out for her. And I just like went through Amazon, looked through a bunch of books, and found books that I thought she would be interested in. They happened to be a lot of YA, and that kind of got her kicked off in her love for reading. But now she's done. She's a college, gosh, she's about to be a senior. And she thinks YA is kind of silly. So now I'm trying to introduce her to kind of more adult books, to different genres. So I thought I would share with you basically the list that I just sat down with her and the options I gave her. Now, this list is not going to work for everybody. Obviously, it was tailored to my sister and to her needs, her tastes. So it's not going to work for everybody, right? But if you are somebody who is trying to kind of get out of YA, or you haven't read a lot because you're like outgrown YA, and you're into kind of female-led books, feminist themes, kind of that kind of stuff, this might be useful. Okay, so if people have, people have different tastes, and so there are, like I said, this is not going to work for everybody, but I'm always happy to give recommendations for people depending on their taste. So if you're like my sister, I think you might enjoy some of these books. So the first one that I mentioned to her is YA. It is YA, but I knew she hadn't read a lot of these kinds of books. This one is Adam Silvera's They Both Die at the End. And some of these books, by the way, are books I have not yet read. Some of these are on my summer TBR list, and this is one of them. So all I know about the premise is that it's set kind of sometime in the futuristic world, and you get a phone call, something like either 24 or 48 hours before you die. Everybody does, and because of that, there's an app that people go to kind of connect with other people that are about to die. And so this is the story of two teenagers who are living their last day, and they spend it together. I thought this would really interest her because it is kind of have themes about sexuality. It is own voices. Yep. And yeah, so I thought that little futuristic element and the fact that it's about gay teens would interest her. She ended up not going with it because I gave her a choice of 3 books that I would buy for her. So she didn't pick that one, but I do think this is a good way to transition into other themes, especially if you think you might be interested in kind of more sci-fi, maybe futuristics. I think this would be a good one. Like I said, I haven't read it, so it just sounded like a good way to begin transitioning out of. Okay, so the next book I suggested to her is Homegoing by Yaa Gyasi, I believe. And this is a book that I have read. It begins in Africa. It's the story of 2 sisters. And one of them gets captured and sold into slavery. And the other one stays in Africa, marries. And you basically follow their 2 lives and their descendants, basically going in 2 different trajectories. And it's just really beautiful story, beautiful story. And because she's interested in kind of issues of social justice, this kind of thing. I thought this might be a book that my sister would like. Like I said, she did not pick this one, but I do think at some point she's going to be interested in it. The next book is another one. It's a kind of bestseller book. It's Before the Fall by Hawley. This was a book that I've also read. It is not one she ended up going with. But the reason I thought this would be a good way to transition out of YA is because it is that kind of bestseller, and it has a kind of mystery theme to it that's interesting but not so serious, right? The author is a screenwriter, and so this book has a very like cinematic feel to it. It's very visual and it feels almost like a movie. And I thought, okay, these kind of bestseller type books are a good way to begin dipping your toe into different genres and in a not like super heavy way. So this particular story is about a plane that goes down, I think it goes down, it departs Martha's Vineyard and it plunges into the ocean. And there are two survivors, an adult man and a little boy. And so the story is of basically them the survivors and the investigators trying to piece together what happened to this plane, why it went down, because there were some kind of important people on the plane. So like I said, these are both bestsellers, kind of very different. This one's a little bit heavy, much more historical. This one is lighter, but has that kind of interesting twist to it. I think these are kind of good way to kind of begin exploring books out of YA. All right, the next three books are all kind of thrillers. They deal with women, or they have women kind of as central figures. And I haven't read all of them. So these are also the three that she picked for me to buy for her. I would have sent them to her for my own collection, except I have not read all of them. So the first one is Heartsick by Caine. This one I have read, and it's the Archie Sheridan and Gretchen Lowell series. So the premise of the series is that Gretchen Lowell is a serial killer, and she is being hunted down by a task force led by Archie Sheridan, the detective. And that is all before the book takes place, right? She, though, gets close to the investigation, kidnaps the lead detective, Archie Sheridan, and tortures him. She tortures him, and then as he's dying on her torture table, she calls the cops, she calls the paramedics for them to save him. They do save him. She ends up in jail, and then the book begins. So it's about kind of him dealing with the aftermath of this. This is months later. There's a new serial killer in town, and they kind of bring him back to lead that investigation. In the meantime, he still has this connection to the serial killer, to Gretchen Lowell, because, well, she saved his life, right? And she tortured him. So there's a little bit of maybe themes of like Stockholm Syndrome, and it's a twisted book. Twisted. That's how I sold it to her. I told her it's twisted. If you're into twisted stories, this might be good for you. Okay, the next one I have not read, and it's Final Girls by Riley Sager. This is on my summer TBR list. I will be reading this soon, and so I don't know too much about it. I don't like to go into thrillers knowing too much, but this is what I know and how I sold it to my sister. I said it's about basically survivors, people who were the lone survivors in like tragic accidents, stuff like that. Final girls, right? And there's this group of them, and somebody is hunting them down. That's it. That's it. To me, that is what I had heard about it. I had heard about this book from different YouTubers. That grabbed me. I don't need to read any more about it. I want to read this. And it's also sold my sister. The last book I haven't read either. This has been on my TBR for months. So this is right at the top of my to-read list this summer. But it's The Girl in 6E by A.R. Torre. And I'll just read you the back because that's all you need. It says, my life is simple as long as I follow the rules. 1, don't leave the apartment. 2, never let anyone in. 3, don't kill anyone. And so obviously it's a female main character. She's a cam girl, You can't leave your apartment. Okay, it's not supposed to kill anyone. So I'm guessing there's going to be some killing. So, yeah. So these three then were the ones that she picked out. They're obviously all thrillers, kind of have women in the center. Heartsick has obviously a male detective, but the serial killer is a woman. And so I thought this would actually be a good way for good theme, good genre for her out of YA, because she liked the kind of romance YA, and these are much more kind of feminist in a way. I don't know. I mean, I haven't read some of these books, so but I think thrillers, even though they involve kind of violence against women, they could also have themes of like female empowerment, and have these kind of mystery, usually some sort of twist in them. And I think when you're sick of YA, this is a good way to go. It's almost like the anti-YA, right? Like mystery thrillers, like intense in a way. So I think if you're at all interested in kind of these stories, it is a good way to begin reading other things. What I'm hoping will happen for my sister is that these become gateway, and then she begins exploring different genres, because that's really the key, I think, is explore other genres, see what you like, see what you don't like. I had wanted her to do that, but when I introduced her to YA, that's kind of the genre that she just engulfed herself in initially. And we all do that, right? Like for me, what was it? Oh, my gateway drug into books was the Babysitter's Club. So for a while, I read every single Babysitter's Club I could get my hands on. Then I started reading Nancy Drew, Goosebumps, just everything in that kind of age group. And then once I began exhausting those books, then I began branching out into different things, into classics and other kind of classical literature, and then into thrillers, bestsellers, romance. You know, you kind of begin exploring, and I'm hoping she does that. And if you're in the similar boat, I hope that you do too, and I hope one of these books interests you, because that can be the thing, right? If it interests you, pick it up, read it. If you like it, you'll want to read more in similar genres, and that'll get the ball rolling. I'm getting way too excited. Anyways, I will update you once I hear back from my sister about what she thought of these books, and once I read them as well, and see if they actually become a gateway drug into more reading for her or not. Anyways, that is it for me. I will see you in the next one, and have a good day.